Hello. So in today's lesson, we are looking at what was the Truman Doctrine. Now, when we say doctrine, we basically mean a new set of rules, a new law. And during the Cold War, a number of leaders bring in these doctrines, new laws to deal with developing situations. So get used to that key term. We've got two learning objectives today: to understand why the Truman Doctrine was announced, and to understand the effects of the Truman Doctrine as well. Now, you've got a quiz to complete in Google Classroom at the end of this lesson. Read the questions carefully, you only get one attempt. And as always, any questions you might have, feel free to contact me, gbrown@stopsyhighschool.co.uk. So, President Truman of the USA was concerned by 1947 that communism might spread throughout Europe completely. Well, why would he believe this? There's a few things to consider. First of all, the long telegram sent to him from Keenan, and that had told him that the Soviet Union intended to spread communism throughout Europe, but that was their aim. They weren't just going to stop with the countries they had taken so far. And also, many of the countries in Eastern Europe now had communist governments, as you can see by this map, those countries coloured in red. Now, although Stalin had promised free elections, as we looked at in a previous lesson, this seemed highly suspicious, and it didn't actually happen. Truman was determined not to let any other European countries fall to communism. He said the spread ends here. He wanted to avoid what's known as a domino effect. So if you imagine a line of dominoes, when one falls, the rest will all fall as well, if you've set it up correctly. Truman was worried this was happening with Europe. And actually one country was turning communist, and then the next country would turn communist, and so on. He wanted to stop that spread. He didn't want Europe to fall like dominoes. So, why is this relevant? Well, we look now at the country of Greece. During World War II, Greece was invaded and occupied by the Nazis. And there were two groups in Greece during this time that had worked together to fight the Nazis, to resist them. A communist group and a pro-royalist group, a group that wanted the royal family in charge. Now, as you can imagine, those are two opposites. Communism, everyone's equal, and the royalists believing in the royal family, a family above everyone. So we've got two groups being forced to work together to defeat the Nazis, but they don't actually like each other. Just like we've seen before, of course, with the Grand Alliance. Well, 1944, when the Nazis left Greece, these two groups fell out over which of them should now rule the country. Not county, I should say country. Britain restored the Greek monarchy and put down a communist rebellion. So Britain got involved. They said, no, the Greek royal family is going to take the throne again. Communists, go away. Britain sent 40,000 troops to Greece and gave them money to support the pro-royalists against the communists. But this wasn't enough. And in 1946, the communists again tried to take power in Greece. And 1947, Britain said to the USA, we cannot afford to keep supporting Greece. We've got to focus on our own country. We've got our own financial problems. We cannot send any more help to Greece. And it looked like the Greek communists were going to win. It looked like they were going to take over Greece. Another country would turn communist. You can see that spread of red on the map there. We've got Greece down below. So it looked like another country would fall. Another domino would go down. Truman couldn't allow this to happen. On the 12th of March 1947, he announced that the USA were giving $400 million of aid to Greece and Turkey, who were also under threat. If we look back at that map, you can see there Greece and Turkey, very close to those communist countries, bordering them. It looks like they were the next two to go down. America would also send over civilian aid and military aid to the region. Now, why is this so surprising that America would do this? Well, you've got to understand that America had something called a policy of isolationism for many years. And what that basically means is staying apart, staying out of incidents, not getting involved in the affairs of other countries. Now, this policy was followed after World War I, where America basically said, Europe can do what it wants, we're not getting involved with this. We're not getting involved with World War II. And if you remember at the start of World War II, America doesn't get involved for a number of years. It only abandoned this policy after Japan attacked Pearl Harbor during World War II. However, when the war ended in 1945, many Americans hoped the USA would return to isolationism, focusing on itself, ignoring other countries. But this couldn't happen with communism spreading throughout Europe. So Truman announced his doctrine. But whilst announcing the aid for Greece and Turkey, Truman also gave a speech showing the difference between Western democracy and communism. So Truman was telling the world that there were two different camps. He said every nation must choose between these different ways of life. The capitalist countries in blue, the communist countries in red. Ignore the others. He said the capitalism is democracy. It offers majority rule, so the majority of people decide who should rule the country, and freedom from political oppression. Politics aren't forced on people, there's a voting system. He said compare that to the countries in red, the communist countries. The will of the minority to be forced upon the majority. And what that basically means is, well, only a few people in each of these countries in red here want communism. It's been forced on them by a small number of people. Most people didn't want communism. A small number of people did, and they forced it on them. Truman said, this isn't fair. This isn't democracy. Truman said communism should not be allowed to grow, and the USA would send troops and economical aid to those trying to resist communism. Now, he never mentions Stalin by name. He never mentions the USSR by name, but it's obviously targeted at them. The USA were limiting the spread of communism, and they didn't want this communism to spread to other countries. They were going to hold it. They were going to contain it where it was. And so this was seen now as a policy of containment. They were holding communism where it was. They would not allow it to spread to any other country. Any other country under the threat of communists, the USA would send aid to help them fight it. So, the Truman Doctrine, and when we say doctrine again, new government, policy or rules, America would stop the spread of communism to other countries by using a policy of containment to fight it. This could include sending money and military support to whichever countries it felt needed this. So, what were the effects of this speech and America getting involved in Europe? Firstly, Greece did not fall to communism. You can see it's in blue there on the map, and it stays blue. The Greek communist rebels fled to Alabama in 1949, finally defeated. The rivalry intensified between the East and the West. Truman had publicly criticised communism as unfree. Yes, he hadn't named Stalin. Yes, he hadn't named the Soviet Union, but he didn't need to. It was an obvious attack on them. The USA abandoned its policy of isolationism. They've never returned to it since. They now looked at a policy of containment. They now looked at getting involved in stopping communism spreading, and this was a key feature of the Cold War. And the USA decided on the Marshall Plan to support the economies of European capitalist countries, and we will look at that next lesson. So, that's the end of today's lesson. Like I said, you've got a quiz to complete now, a few questions to look at today's lesson. If you need to go back, feel free to do so. Read them carefully. You only get one attempt. All that remains for me to do is say thank you for completing this lesson. As always, please look after yourself, get some fresh air and exercise, and I will see you soon. Take care and all the best. Bye-bye.